And suddenly, I was now in five-figure debt, not really understanding how I was going to get myself out of this. My days during the week were basically me waking up in the morning, leaving home to go to work, doing my work during the day, coming home, crying for a little bit because I felt so lost and alone, and I felt that there was no way out of this. And so I decided to take matters into my own hands. I was able to pay off my debt within 1.5 years. It was the longest 1.5 years of my life to date, because for a long time I sort of thought that, someone was stealing money from my bank account when it was actually me. Welcome to the Wealth Conversation. I'm your host, Tsitsi Mutiti, qualified investment manager, trained financial coach with 16 years experience in the wealth management industry. I am on a mission to get more women from underrepresented communities comfortable talking about all areas of the wealth creation journey. So in this podcast, I will be having conversations with guest experts and ordinary people about how our physical, mental, social, spiritual, and financial well-being impact our ability to grow, protect, and maintain the money that we earn. I realized the importance about talking about money and wealth in my early 30s. This was a time in my life when I was struggling to manage my finances, and I had accumulated a lot of debt. I'd moved to the UK in my early 20s from Zimbabwe, and my first interaction with money that I can remember was actually setting up a bank account. I'd gone into the bank branch to set up an account so my salary could be paid into the account. And in addition to setting up the account, I was offered an overdraft. To my mind at the time, I thought, wow, this is free money. Who would say no to it? I might as well get it in case I need extra money. Also, that was the kind of conversation that the person in the bank was having with me, that it would be good to have this as a buffer in case my salary gets delayed or there are other things that I might need to do with money and I may not have that money to hand at the time. That all made sense to me. What I didn't understand, and what really wasn't explained to me clearly enough for me to understand, was the interest payable if I didn't clear my overdraft within a certain period. And before I knew it, I was actually living in my overdraft. And it got to a point where I was now getting loans to try and cover the overdraft, and then a credit card. I also got access to store cards. You name it, I had it. And suddenly, I was now in five-figure debt, not really understanding how I was going to get myself out of this. And a lot of things were happening at that time. I was now feeling very low in myself. I didn't have a lot of confidence. And I thought everyone came across me knew that I was struggling financially. I should also mention that one of my weaknesses is helping people. And so if anyone came to me with a problem, I would do my best to help them. And more often than not, one of the questions I'd ask is, how much money do you need? And it got to a point where some of the money that I owed was because I had been helping other people out. So I was actually helping others at the detriment of my own financial needs. Until moving to the UK, my relationship with money was very much cash-based. And so I didn't have access to debt at any point until I got my first overdraft. Also, the lack of knowledge on how interest worked and how debt worked and how all of that would accumulate over time. And so I was used to dealing in cash. And the downside for me when I started borrowing money was that I had no concept of the pounds and pence involved when interest was added to any debt. Also, I'd got to a point where I was secretly hoping that all this debt would disappear. So I wasn't even opening the statements that were coming through to me in the post or the reminder letters to pay. So here I am in this financial situation where I have got no way out, or at least I felt like I had no way out. And my days during the week were basically me waking up in the morning, leaving home to go to work, doing my work during the day, coming home, crying for a little bit because I felt so lost and alone, and I felt that there was no way out of this, going to bed, waking up in the morning and starting that cycle again. On the weekends, I wasn't interested in spending time with family and friends or anyone because I just didn't have the energy to be around people. I didn't have the energy to talk about anything because all I could think about was this huge problem that I had, which I could not resolve. And I remember being in this cycle of not wanting to be around people, just feeling very, very low for about 3 months. I can't really say what got me out of it, but one action I did was to contact a debt consolidation company because all I could say to myself at that point was, there has to be a better way and enough is enough. I cannot continue feeling this way. So it really was more about how I was feeling in myself than the actual amount of money that I owed. Having a conversation with the debt consolidation company was actually the first time that I had had a full and frankish conversation about my situation. At the end of the call, we had agreed that I would consolidate my debts, and I was told that I could pay off my debts within 6.5 years. And at that point, I would be debt free. And the whole aim was that I would still be able to meet all my other obligations and still live my life, but also be chipping away at the money that I owed. So I agreed to the plan and promised to complete the paperwork that would be sent to me in the post. Not long after I ended the call, I just started reflecting on what was discussed. And I realized that I wasn't ready to spend 6.5 years with this debt still hanging over me. I mean, this would have meant 6.5 years of me not being able to enjoy or even understand how much money I was earning because it would be going to pay this debt. It would be 6.5 years of me feeling embarrassed about my situation and not being able to be myself around people because I felt inferior and I actually thought that everyone else had a good grip on their financial circumstances. It would have been another 6.5 years of me paying money that I couldn't use on myself. And then after that, it would take 6 whole years for this financial mess to fall off my credit file. There had to be a better way. There just had to be a better way. And so I decided to take matters into my own hands. I grabbed my laptop, opened an Excel spreadsheet, and went to the paper bag that I'd been stuffing all these letters that were coming through the post to me and started sorting them out. I then started putting in the information in the spreadsheet about who I owed, how much I owed, and the interest rate. And then decided to take my time over a few days to contact every single company and see if they would agree to a proposal for me to pay off the amount that I owed them. I was able to pay off my debt within 1.5 years. It was the longest 1.5 years of my life to date. I had to learn so much about myself and understand exactly where every penny that I earned was going. I went through an exercise before calling all these companies of looking at 3 months worth of my bank statements and seeing where my money was going. Because for a long time, I sort of thought that, someone was stealing money from my bank account when it was actually me. Part of that process was, what am I paying for that I don't need? Where am I spending my money? And it revealed a lot of things about how I felt about myself. It also revealed how I was so quick to help others at my own expense. I learned from that experience, going through my bank statements, that I actually had enough money to live the life that I wanted to live. I could have been saving, but the decisions I was making with my money had meant that I had taken myself back several years in terms of building the wealth and the lifestyle that I wanted. Looking back, the one thing that I wish I had been able to do sooner was talk to someone about my financial situation. whether it was a professional or someone in my friendship circle or a family member. I strongly believe that if I had had that opportunity to be able to have a conversation with someone, I would have learnt a lot about myself sooner, understood some of the reasons why I was borrowing this money and why I felt it was important to help others than help myself. Because at that point in my life, I was literally giving from a cup that was half empty. I'm now in a privileged position to be able to talk about my money story. And my mission is to encourage and support anyone who may be in the situation that I was many years ago, to have a conversation with someone about their situation. It won't be as easy, and your first conversation may not be the one that will give you all the answers. But the first thing is to have a conversation and to realize that you are not alone. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and you have everything you need to be able to become debt-free and build the wealth that you desire for yourself and for generations to come. So I hope that this episode will give you the confidence to start having conversations about money and all areas of wealth with those close to you. If you'd like to receive more of my content, then hit the subscribe button. And if you feel that this episode has resonated with you in some way, please give it a thumbs up and share it with anyone you believe will benefit from it too.